do you want?
No one here is exactly what he appears.
Nothing's the same anymore.
Commander Sinclair is being reassigned.
Why don't you eliminate the entire non-homo?
What are we going to have? Reaching out of a star.
Who are you?
President Clark has signed a decree today declaring
These
martial
orders
law.
have forced us to declare independence.
Let's let people get off their encounter-suited butts and do something.
You are the one who was.
To Zahadu, who will die.
Why are you here? Do you have anything worth living for?
Think of my beautiful city. Flames.
Giants in the playground.
Get the hell out of our galaxy!
We are here to place President Clark under arrest.
Hello and welcome to Chats the Television Podcast, Season 6, Chatzylon 5. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by the man who will go to his grave with my teeth in his throat. Blah! It's almost Halloween! And he is Magellan.
You've made me a vampire.
And made me a vampire. Who is this? Who is this pizza man?
You made me this way when
That's
you bit my
me.
neck. Why are you mocking me? You did
And
this to
I'm not
me.
mocking you. Who's mocking you?
You're doing it.
You're mocking me. You ever see an accent? Well, no, you don't. You're a white guy. But I was going to say, do you ever see an accent and it instantly reminds you of family? And I was like, it doesn't.
It doesn't. That doesn't happen to me. No.
Okay. No, it's all right. You're allowed.
Sometimes when I encounter Midwestern accents, that there's a sort of like homey quality to it, but
Yes.
there's nobody in my family who talks that way.
For sure. Every once in a while, Facebook recommends me your family members. And I'm like, I don't want to.
Like my aunts and uncles and stuff?
Yes.
That's funny.
And I'm like, I can't. I'm not allowed. Maybe someday when we get married, if we get married.
When we get married, yeah.
Thank you. How you been?
I'm feeling a little sick today. Sorry if I'm stuffed up, everybody.
That's ill. You're ill.
I'm ill.
It's almost
hydrating. Got to stay hydrated.
You got hydro homies.
Hydro Thunder.
Ripping Hydro Thunder. It is almost Halloween. I feel like we're finally getting into the season. I know.
Season, yeah.
The two things I have planned for this year, well, three maybe, I guess. I want to try candy corn to finally determine myself, not what the internet tells me, what I tell myself, if I actually like candy corn.
You're telling me you've never had candy corn?
I have, but it's been so long that I forget if I like it.
I love it.
I need to know.
I
some
swear
people are
by
like,
it.
yeah, some people swear against it. So I'm like, I just want to know. Like, I know what it tastes like. If I like think right now, I can imagine what it tastes like, and it's like, that seems okay, but I need to know. So I'm going to try, and I'll get back to y'all. And I also want to watch two films. Hocus Pocus, which I've somehow never seen, even though I've seen most like kitschy Halloween movies.
It's fine.
It's so kitschy that they made a musical out of it.
I don't know anything about the musical, but Hocus Pocus itself is fine.
And then I also want to watch Dark Crystal, because there's a Netflix Dark Crystal now, and this will be appealing to longtime Chats listeners, but somebody sent me a tweet recently, because Dark Crystal was a Jim Henson company production, saying that the new Dark Crystal series is clearly reusing sets from Farscape. And I was like,
Oh, very exciting.
Right? Can you imagine seeing a little bit of like a little slice of Moya on the new Dark Crystal? But I have to watch the movie first.
There's a Dark Crystal show? That's what it is?
Yes.
Ooh.
It's a Netflix original series, but I want to watch the movie first because I also heard it's good, and I liked Labyrinth a lot. So
that sounds like one that we should do.
Dark Crystal?
Yeah.
We probably could. If we want to just like do that for funsies, why not?
Yeah.
Another thing we could do for funsies is talk about Babylon 5.
Whatever, man. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, okay, cool. Every week on Chats, we talk about 2 episodes of a cult classic television show. And this week, we continue our journey through Season 5 of Babylon 5 with Season 5, Episode 11, Phoenix Rising, and Season 5, Episode 12, The Ragged Edge. Phoenix Rising was written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by David J. Eagle. It aired April 1st, 1998, April Fools, and it takes place on June 19th of 22, a sickesty 2. Magellan, what happened in Phoenix Rising?
In this episode, the standoff between the telepaths, the Alliance, and the Psi Corps ends in blood and tragedy. Garibaldi confronts his nemesis. Alan, what did you think of Phoenix Rising?
So it looks like we've reached the end of at least this chapter of the Telepath War arc, and as always, it's exciting that Babylon 5
Sorry,
manages.
I love any good opinion that starts with
the French. But a California champagne. I missed that video. It's been like 5 days. I'm always impressed how quickly Babylon 5 can like set up, build out, and then like knock down its pieces. And the Byron stuff comes to what I think is at least a conclusion. It's pretty satisfying. It's exactly what we expected, but in a sort of like a skew weird way, which is on par with the rest of Babylon 5. But like, it kind of leaves things in this like not very satisfying, sort of unfinished way. Like, I feel like if you're gonna commit to ending this plot line, then you got to do it. But like, this kind of feels like this is the end. This is the end of like chapter 1 of a book, and they're gonna like now start telling a real story, even though we're halfway through the whole season.
Right.
What about you, sir?
I'm glad that the Byron stuff is over. I will not be remembering Byron, despite how many times Lita says it.
Remember Byron.
I will be forgetting Byron very quickly. I thought that they finally gave him enough in this episode that I was like, yeah, I can watch him, and he's a character. The fact that he was like Bester's protege was useful, I think.
Did you think he was going to secretly be Bester's son? I kind of did for like half a second.
No, I didn't.
Because when he was no, may I see it? Because he was like, the Korra's mother, the Korra's father. Hey, I'm your father, and I was like, that's stupid. And then it didn't do that.
That would have been pretty fun. The Korra's father, sometimes literally.
Cut to a baby being born with long hair the minute it comes out. Gross.
The whole baby comes out, and then the rest of the hair comes out after.
Yeah, it's just falling.
I guess babies aren't born that way. Well, sometimes they are. They're born breech, but for the purposes of this, Byron is born breech.
But so, what did you think of the episode?
Good question.
Is the thing I wanted to know.
I thought the telepath stuff got to a conclusion that I think works for what it was. I was happy to see Bester. I thought that he was fun. Season 5 Bester's pretty good. I was sad with where this episode takes Garibaldi, but in a good way. His nemesis that he's confronting in the summary here, I'm assuming means alcohol as opposed to Bester.
I didn't even think about that. I'm a dumb. The whole thing is that he ends it with like in the second episode with the alcohol, and it's like he's getting back into drinking. You
didn't catch that?
Not that it was related to him. I was like, why is it dumb that he's going drinking to sleep? And now I get it.
But yeah, he's an alcoholic, bro.
It's been a long day, pal.
Okay. All right. Great.
I'm sorry for sounding mad. I was too good at that bit there.
No,
anyways.
It's okay. But yeah, overall, I thought it was decent. I guess is my assessment of it.
But to get into it, we open on Bester and the Bloodhounds as he's talking about there's all these different factions on the intercoms. And then Byron calls him, or calls the rest of the crew, and he happens to be there. And he's like, Byron has a history of not keeping his promises, which you're just like, okay, so they have a past together, great. And that pin has now been laid up for the ball to come knock it over. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, I think it's Franklin who says the only thing worse than a loud Garibaldi is a quiet one. As we set up our other plot of the episode, which is that Garibaldi has ambushed Bester in his quarters, and he threatens him to either record a confession of everything that he did, like all the mind wiping and that stuff, and using that for the conspiracy, or he's going to put a PPG bullet in his head. Bester's like, hey, have you heard of a guy named Isaac Asimov? He's pretty cool. He had these laws, and one of them is like the creation cannot kill its master. So you can't kill me, and you can't allow me to be killed. Which is, that second one's a wonky rule, because he's like, you can't like directly allow me to be killed, basically.
Yeah, right.
But it's not like if a murder plot is happening, Garibaldi's gonna instantly like psychically know about it and stop it. It's not that.
Yeah, but he can't willfully allow it to happen, it sounds like.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's like trying to pull the trigger, and he's like, no matter how much you pull this trigger, it's like me lifting my hand. If I don't send the signal to my brain to do it, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is dark.
That was super dark. I think that answers some of the questions we had about, maybe we questioned this, like why would Bester let him live and have all of these memories? And it turns out it's because there's no danger to him whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Specifically to him. So he's had more control over Garibaldi than we thought he did.
Yeah.
Which is really scary. I think you had described it as delightfully devilish is the sort of character trait for Bester in this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we then have Lita, who is doing her best in this episode. I think Patricia Tallman is like not given a lot to work with, but she's like
she's made to react to a lot of things.
Exactly. And she's trying to get Byron to tell her like what's going on between you and Bester, and then he tells her the story. He used to be a side cop.
Yeah, first before he tells her, she's like, what was the deal with what Bester just said? And he's like, there's no time. Every time a character in a show says there's no time, it drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. I just want every other character to say, yeah, there is. Just give me the quick one-sentence version.
It'll save
fast.
so many lives. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say it. The one that always bothers me, but I'm starting to think is intentional, is when they're like, we called EarthGov to ask for help, and they said they're too busy right now. And I'm like, they've never been not busy. Right. That's the whole point. So I was starting to think at this like point in the series, like, is that just intentional? Is that one has to be intentional, where it's just like, yeah, you can't expect bureaucracy to help the average person. Like they're not ever going to be available.
I think so. Yeah.
It's obviously also plot convenient, but in it kind of counters people who are like, why didn't they just call EarthGov to send a bunch of cops? And it's like, that's why.
Yeah, it seems like it's serving both of those purposes.
But speaking of cops, so we get a little flashback of Byron in a ship. He's Bester's protege. Bester is like, I need you to go fire on these mundanes because they're a problem for us. And he's like, I can't kill them. They're innocents. And he's like, you are going to kill the younglings. Do it. Bester goes full Emperor Palpatine. Byron is like, I can't. And then he does it. He shoots the younglings, which is sad. And then he says something like, all the rebels nowadays gave me hope that like maybe telepaths are okay. And now they've gone against me and they're killing cops. Oh no, I'm so sad.
Yeah,
Byron's
it helps to
sad.
add some depth and some sense to his whole approach, his whole nonviolent approach. It makes him more than just like the kind of divine, appeared out of nowhere Jesus figure guy that he'd been presented as before.
Yeah.
So I liked this layer to him.
And the way that the Jesus figure aspect comes to a head this episode is interesting. It's not as clean as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Before everything pops off, the last moment is Garibaldi is asking Dr. Franklin if there are drugs to counter a telepathic block. And Franklin's like, I mean, maybe there are. Oh no, the rebels have guns. And so the rebels assault Medlab, and they kidnap Garibaldi. And you basically just feel like at this point, like they're recreating that shot from Deconstruction of Falling Stars that we saw.
Yeah, the one where it's like the observation camera or whatever.
Yeah, and there's someone pointing a gun in first person at Garibaldi, and then we don't know what happened. We didn't know what happened, but now we see that.
Yeah.
We get that moment almost verbatim where you have Sheridan and Delenn being like, and Lockley being like, do we deal with terrorists? Do we negotiate with terrorists? And then Sheridan comes on the screen and it's like, we don't negotiate with terrorists. I feel like there's the line when Lockley is like, do we negotiate with terrorists, Mr. President? Do we? Is like 1998 as fuck. Because the tenor of that kind of conversation would be so much more dire and important, I think, and in post 9/11 world, like that would be.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because I think I always think of terrorism as like a concern that kind of came out of nowhere post 9/11, but that's not the case, obviously.
For sure. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to see the attitude that Babylon 5 takes towards terrorism and towards something like we don't negotiate with terrorists, which is an idea that is so cliche now.
Yeah.
And I think at the time it wasn't necessarily that cliche. I don't know for sure. But like the way that Sheridan phrases it, he like explains himself in a way that makes it feel like it's not a given that any viewer of Babylon 5 is going to say, "Oh yeah, the thing that people say, we won't negotiate with terrorists." I know why that is.
I kind of wanted to like read about the origin of that phrase because I think they used it like in the Iran-Contra affair, like with Reagan, with the American hostages in Iran. So like it's been a phrase that's like
that. Got it.
I presume. It's also been just before that. Like it's been thrown around a lot. And the thing is, like the way media portrays it is like everyone knows that we don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't need to say why. It's because if we do, then they like what Sheridan says. That's opening a door that we can't close. Like that's the commonly understood rationale for it. But it kind of like ignores the fact that like we totally negotiate with terrorists. It's just not like in a hostage situation.
I also appreciate the angle that the show gives to it, where Garibaldi's like negotiating with them, and it seems like he's going to make some ground, and then Sheridan gets on and he says, "We're not going to negotiate with you." Garibaldi's like, "Oh, great, thanks,
great, cool, very, very helpful," and we know how that we see how that goes.
Yeah.
And to be fair, a lot of media also like does this where they say we don't negotiate and then it goes badly. I don't know that many like shows or movies that are like we don't negotiate and then it's like we did it, we're smart, and they gave up because we didn't negotiate. But what I mean is like, yeah, we totally negotiate with terrorists like all the time. Like we sell weapons to them. Like what's going on, guys? Yeah. But anyways, so this scene happens like we thought it did, except the gun that's being pulled out, it is the one being aimed at Garibaldi, but right before that gets fired, Byron comes in and decides to take action with his own hands, and he shoots on that guy. Immediately, this was kind of interesting because I was like, oh, I guess Byron's not like a perfect martyr.
Yeah.
Like he did pull a gun on a man, but the show doesn't really seem to think that. It's still like, no, yeah, he's a martyr. Like Sheridan later is like, you're a symbol for your people.
It's weird because he shoots that one guy.
Yep.
And then I guess we'll get there. But we could just talk about the end scene for Byron now if you want. I will say that I liked Byron's response to Sheridan. This isn't the end scene, that you're a symbol of your people, right?
No, it's not. It's before the end scene, but we can get there.
Is that the one where they're talking to him and Bester shows up and messes up the conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the part. It's like the beginning of that scene.
I see. Okay. So the other thing just to say about Byron not being a perfect martyr is the way that he goes out. Eventually, the deal that is struck, there's an attempt where Sheridan and Lockley say, okay, talk to us. They're talking. Maybe we can make some ground. Byron insists you have to get the Psi Corps out of it. They can't be involved in any way. And Bester strolls in. He's like, hey, what's up? Fuck you, Byron. I'm going to get you. I'm going to catch you real good and make you like me. And then Byron's like, bye. So that messes up that conversation. Then there's another call later where Byron and Lockley agree that the plan is only the telepaths who have killed people or who have committed acts of violence will be detained. And they will be detained by Babylon 5 and not by the Psi Corps.
Yes.
So that plan is about to go through, and then Bester and his Psi cops and his bloodhound show up and muck that up.
And they're like, no, I don't want that. I want all the telepaths. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Bester is so annoyingly persistent in this here, yeah.
Yeah. And then the one telepath who has been kind of pushing for more and more violence in the moment where he sees the Psi Corps is like, I can't go back. Pow, pow, pow. And a firefight breaks out. And then, weirdly, we have this standoff where the shooting stops because hazardous waste starts pouring out of a poorly located pipe. And, like, this could be fine. This moment could actually be fine. Byron insists that, like, we're not who we were. We are who you turned us into. And, like, there's no going back and there's no compromise. And I didn't fully understand why he felt that way in this moment.
Before the guy pulls the gun out?
when after some shooting is exchanged and then there's like a pause because of the hazardous waste.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that Byron is like, this isn't going to work, and decides that the only thing that can work is for him to like purify the telepaths by killing himself and the people with him.
Yeah, this is messy. That's why I was saying, like, when I said that his end is not clean, is he says that, and then I just figured he was going to, like, just aim the gun at his head, honestly. And I was like, that's really messed up for, like, a, network television show to do something like that and to show that.
Yeah.
He is like, hey, Lita, I told you when it's time you're going to leave. This is the time, get away. And she's like, I can't. And he's like, do it anyways. He starts singing the song again, like the song that they played, what they were all singing when she like joined them first a couple episodes ago.
And we will all come together in a better place. A better place than this.
And he's like, it'll all be better someday, bye. And then instead of shooting himself, he shoots the chemical leak and blows up all the telepaths, including himself, that are nearby. He's like, has them all come close. And then goes bye-bye. This is a really weird way for him to go out, like you said. Because it does make him a martyr, and it does lead to Lita being like, we're totally going to pick up the pieces. We have no plans to stop. Like, literally next scene, they're like, hey, they already put bombs at Psycor HQ. Like, we're not slowing down.
But it makes him a martyr by his own hand, which is what's weird about it.
Right. That feels less... Like, the second episode talks a lot about how religious figures can be turned into those things by the actions that they leave behind, and like the stuff that they leave behind, the ideas, not by their own actions. And then this is just like, no, but sometimes you get to decide that you're a martyr, and it just feels really weird that he just makes that decision. And not only that he does it to himself, but he does it to like a lot of people, like a lot of telepaths die with him.
And Lita is central to that working for him. He basically says like, hey, there isn't a great way out right now, so I'm going to kill myself, and I need you to be the person who like makes this a thing.
Yeah, make this cool, because it's going to be kind of dumb.
Make this awesome.
And make everybody write remember Byron on all the walls, because it's cooler than Free Byron. Spoiler alert, it's not cool. It's probably worse.
Yeah. It is stupider. When I first saw it, I like laughed out loud.
Remember that there's that, and then there's we just like immediately have Bester and Sheridan looking at they're like lamenting the events, and Bester's like, man, Bester's so stupid in this scene. He's like, I wish the telepaths could get along. Like, I really thought that we could get along to defeat a common enemy. And then Sheridan's like, you mean us? You mean mundanes? And he's like, yeah. I really wish we could get along and defeat our common enemy. Anyways, bye, Sheridan. Such a strange exchange between the two of them, where it's like, why detain him? He like is the reason for this.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how Bester's worldview can be myopic sometimes. Like, you think of him as such a master manipulator and chess player, but he just has this fundamental blind spot where he thinks that all telepaths want to be psychops.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand why anybody would want anything different than that.
Oh, man, that's the most biting criticism of, like, the old guard I've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
They only have one view of how people do things. Wow.
Yeah.
Franklin comes by and is like, anybody seen Garibaldi? He seemed really sad the last time we spoke, almost as if he was powerless and being controlled, like formerly controlled by someone or something. It's like, Franklin is the ultimate empath. He just like read Garibaldi's mind.
Yeah.
Then we get the really stupid scene where Lita talks to the telepaths, and she's like, Byron left me with certain secrets, and she like glares at Bester, and information. So I have all of his notes, and I organized for all of you to be escorted safely. Tomorrow we begin again. And then each of them comes up to her and holds her hands, kind of like a single second high five, and they say, remember Byron, remember Byron, remember Byron.
And every single one of them looks like they don't want to do it.
Yeah, everyone's like, it's the Pee Wee soccer thing where after the game.
I was just about to say that the good game. It feels just like good game.
Good game.
Good game.
Everyone who's done PB Soccer was just activated by that because it's so
Good game.
It's so memorable. Nobody wants to do. Even if you won, you're just like, I want to get pizza after this. Come on. And then we end on Garibaldi. In this one, he's watching the news, and the news is like, and any other news, the what's it called? Psycor place was blown up by bombs, and he's like, and takes a big sippy from some alcohol, and then that's how the episode ends.
Well, but then, is it in the second episode or this one? Like, as it's tilting up to look at the TV or to look at the bottle or something, it passes by his figurine of Bugs Bunny in a Lazy Boy. That's the second episode?
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, this one isn't him passed out. This one is just him, like, drinking, watching the news.
Oh, he takes his first drink. That's right.
Yes, which is, as I'm now remembering, very
chilling.
Important.
Chilling.
Very chilling. Especially, like, we are not done messing up Garibaldi's life. He's the eternally owned man in space this season, it seems like.
Yeah, for now. I mean, as we saw in the second episode, Londo's about to get owned AF.
That's true. That's so true. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really often feel genuine like fear for the outcomes of characters, and I'm not like, oh my god, don't. But in this scene where Garibaldi pours himself a drink, I was like, no. Garibaldi, no,
do not, please.
No, oh no. Because that's like a kind of destruction that you can bring on Garibaldi that doesn't negate him as a narrative entity, but like causes him real significant harm.
Right.
And so he doesn't have like plot shield the way that he would against someone firing a bullet at him or something.
Exactly. It's you're watching someone destroy themselves and knowing it's going to happen and trying to avoid watch it end, but it's just happening. Like yeah, it's a real bummer, and we see that progress even again within these two episodes so quickly as he descends into sadness. That's Babylon. That's the idea of Babylon 5. Ultimately, is watching people descend.
Right. Yep.
And we're here for it, honestly. Before we talk about the second episode, we have some feedback we can read today, Magellan.
Yeah. Let's do it. I had some stray notes. Can I take a second to try to remember what they were?
I would love that. Just
in terms of stray notes, I really was delighted by there's an exchange that happens in this episode between Bester and Sheridan where Bester says something like, the president did this despite his liberal ideas.
Yes.
He looks at him, and you can see Bruce Boxleitner come through in that moment, like, no, whoa, what?
Whoa, not me. No, come on.
Chill out.
Chill. I forgot about that.
I thought that was really funny. His liberal ideas.
Yeah, disgusting.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Oh, and then we get a little Zach Allen on the TV screen. Nope, that's the second one.
That's the second one.
Never mind. Okay,
that's
cool.
a good moment though. So we have one email this week, and then we have a couple of tweets I was going to read out.
Dang, we got to get more emails.
We are recording ahead of time.
Oh, yes, we are. You're right.
This episode came out hours ago.
We're recording a week ahead. Okay, go ahead.
So this one's from 2 days ago. It's from a listener, Brian, who basically just says that actor Richard Briggs, was also in Tremors, the TV series, and one of the characters in that show actually makes a Babylon 5 reference.
Oh.
Which is fun. I've never seen Tremors, the TV series, but I feel like I would like it, actually. In an effort to get people sort of talking about what we're going to talk about, I posted an image of the Free Byron thing, just to like kind of get the ball rolling, because I was like, if people haven't heard the episode yet, they're not going to know that we're going to complain about that. So I posted the Free Byron thing and got some people saying stuff like, the magnitude that Byron sucks is beyond human measure, which is from listener and guest Stefan. Ryan from Spin Polish says, don't blow your load of the Byron hate train before the next episode, which is good because I always have more hate for Byron's whole thing. Listener Tim says, stupid telepath misspelled free bird. Byron hate spells forth from a bottomless well. A lot of Byron hate.
I ended up mellowing out on the Byron hate. I think. Oh, I remember another stray thought I had.
Yeah.
Before Byron's death, he and Lita have this extended goodbye exchange that is clearly green screened.
Where is this? Not when they're about to when in the room where he blows up, right?
Yeah, in the room where he blows up.
Oh, what?
Like everybody's staring, and he's about to blow himself up, and he's like, "Hey, Lita, I love you, baby, so much." Blah, 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 blah. And they go back and forth for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes or something, and you can see in the background everyone is completely still. Nobody's moving. Nobody's doing anything. And it's like, I don't care about Byron's like his
What the
closure.
F? Oh my god, I'm looking at it right now. Oh my god.
Yeah. And I was expecting for the Byron Lita plot to resolve with an acknowledgement on her part that he's like manipulating her hardcore.
Yeah, nope. I don't know if that's just not in the
frustrated by that.
Not on the spectrum of this show or what. The guy behind them is blinking, so the shot behind is definitely it's not static, but it definitely looks like it's a composite or something. It might just be a weird lens, but it looks super weird. I agree.
It looks like they did it after the fact, like they had to reshoot it or something, or they like wrote it in because they realized it wasn't impactful enough, something like that.
We didn't reference the line. Shit. You ever think about that? Like people write a whole story in order and then realize that they made a line that was designed to be referenced later and forgot to do it.
Oh yeah, I bet that happens.
And that just breaks the brains of people like us who remember all those dumb lines, and it's like, we got to put it in. Yeah, that was a weird moment for sure. But a lot of people do. I think people kind of are with us with the Byron hate just because it's a kind of an interesting idea that's handled really weirdly. Mm-hmm. Even with this dead, like to the last drop, you know?
Yeah, I think this last episode of him was like the least that I've hated him. Yeah. But there's just so much on the front end of that it was hard to invest in him before he died.
Yeah, for sure. But as always, send us emails, chatspot@gmail.com, @chatspot on Twitter. I'll bring those plugs back at the end. But first, we'll be right back after this brief musical break to discuss The Ragged Edge.
Welcome back to Chatzylon 5. The second episode we watched this week was Season 5, Episode 12, The Ragged Edge. It was written by Joe Jonas, directed by John Copeland. It aired April 8th, 1998, and it takes place June 20th to 23rd of 2262, and it was written by J. Michael Straczynski. Oh. Alan, what happened in this episode of Babylon 5?
Oh, boy. Well, boy, howdy. Worth noting briefly before we start that John Copeland, I thought was a first-timer, but he did direct episode 20 of Season 4, Endgame.
We've seen that name before.
Yeah, he also produces the whole show. He's the producer of the show.
Oh, okay.
Produced all episodes, and he directs the series finale.
Oh, okay. You think you're a big shot, huh?
Yeah, Mr. John Copeland.
Okay. All right.
Well, John, in The Ragged Edge... we're joking because unfortunately, Garibaldi's relapse into alcoholism jeopardizes a covert mission to the Drazi homeworld. Jakar discovers that he has become a religious leader to his people. I'm not laughing about relapsing into alcoholism. Absolutely. What did you think of The Ragged Edge?
Oh, man. I can't do it legit now. Alan just had to cut out my answer to it a moment ago because it sounded bad. But I really liked it a lot. It's a very solid kind of like standard episode of Babylon 5, I feel like. You get a little action, you go to an alien planet, which actually doesn't happen very much. Kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely unique.
Yeah. Garibaldi gets to do stuff, and he like gets to be cool, but also gets to have his demons. You weirdly get like a good chunk of Franklin character development, which never happens. And then the stuff with Jakar is just mwah. It's fantastic.
Mwah.
Yeah. What did you think?
Yeah, I was. So the reason I was giggling at the beginning was I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but I had like a busy night while I was watching this episode, and it completely soared over my head that the whole point of the plot with Garibaldi is that, well, it's like the stuff with the Drazi and the Jock and Centauri and all that, but also like he is relapsing. I didn't even get that. I just figured like, yeah, he's having a drink with his pal, and now I'm like, oh my god, that's a big deal. I'm stupid.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
forgetful.
Yeah.
So that's hitting me a lot more now.
Because he has the moment where his friend offers him a drink, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't do that anymore." And his friend's like, "What? Do what?" And Garibaldi says, "Oh, it has been a really long time since we've seen each other."
Right.
Because this is a guy that he knew back when he was an alcoholic.
Yes, this was like
I guess,
one of his drinking buddies.
I guess alcoholics think of themselves as always alcoholics. Is that part of the gig? But when he was drinking heavily, that's when
Maybe, yeah. I'm not familiar with how the AA like methodology works, or how like the coming to terms with your alcoholism works.
Yeah. So that's a huge part of what's going on in this episode.
Yeah, I
and
think
it's also the reason that he refuses to let Franklin come with him.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch this episode again, folks. I think I just need to watch it over. Okay, that was me cutting to watch the whole episode over. I just came back. Wow.
Stop it, you liar.
No, I don't lie. That was about
You're
a 45-minute
lying.
break.
Quit it. You lied.
You think things fly over my head. Sheridan begins this episode by being like, Delenn, I didn't think presidency was going to be like 90% paperwork. And it's like, buddy, what did you think presidency was? That's exactly what being the president is. It's all paperwork.
The line, I appreciated the line. He said, it's 50% paperwork, 50% panic, I think is how he phrased it.
Yes, that's correct.
That sounds right.
I'm not that I've been president before, but every president that's been able to talk about it afterwards is like, yeah, it's all right. It's all paperwork, of course.
And we get to have an actual moment of like flirting and chemistry between Delenn and Sheridan, which I feel like doesn't happen as often as you think it would.
Yeah.
Given that they are supposed to be the like love story anchor of the show.
Uh-huh.
And as the intro sequence reminds us, like the reason that Sheridan was able to come back to life was because he loves Delenn, right?
Right. That like, she was the thing that grounded him.
To live for. But she's like, okay, yeah, you can come along later to the meeting. We'll just take a vote. I'll tell them that we're going to invade Earth. That'll get everybody happy. And he's like, yeah, sure. I'll sign the paperwork. And then she leaves, and then he's like, oh, whoops. Ha ha ha. That's so funny.
It's also a little bit funny, a little bit sad to me when they go to the meeting that they planned and there's just nobody there. They're like, oh shit, nobody came.
Yeah.
Which is because the rest of the Alliance is boycotting their Alliance meetings until the Alliance agrees to defend their ships from the recent attacks, which they think are the Centauri maybe, but are really the Jock, I guess.
I don't think they even suspect it being the Centauri yet.
Oh, they don't even know. They don't know that. They don't figure that until even the end of the episode.
Later in the episode, yeah.
True. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about like the Drock plot, and we'll get to where that blows up. But for now, our B plot is established as Jakar and Londo are home. Londo missed it. Londo's like, man, I missed Babylon 5. But like I was unhappy here, and I was unhappy on Centauri Prime. Like, well, I don't know. And then Jakar's like, bud, did you ever think like you might just not be happy? Like you might just be a sad man. He's like, no.
He's like, you might just be destined to be miserable or something like that. Yeah, that was like, hilarious.
People are like bowing to, or there are different Narn who are like bowing to Jakar, and he's like, ha ha ha, Malari. That's weird. I don't know what's
he literally does say Malari. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a really clean Malari.
Listen, glad to see you.
Yes, but we weren't gone that long, less than a month.
Well, there you have the key to your popularity, your absence. Go away for a month and they bow. Go away for 6 months, they will tear the place apart when you come back. Perhaps you should go away and never come back again. Then your popularity would be so overwhelming, it would blacken the stars.
No,
I have always said this about you. Nothing so improves your company like the lack of it. The less they see of you, the more they like you.
An actual Malari. We get a brief scene that I love. Just the like male chemistry in this episode is firing on all cylinders. Jakar Talon, Jakar Londo, Garibaldi Zach. Garibaldi's waking up from his like night of heavy drinking. He's shirtless. He's up at 10 a.m., which for Babylon, for an employed security person or whatever, I guess he's not in. He's in covert ops, but he works. And Zach calls him and is like, "Oh, you good, bud?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm good. What's up? How you doing?" And it's like a little bit cute the way that they're like, "You had a rough night? Yeah, what's going on? You look like crap. You look like crap." That whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just their friendship has gone through a lot, just like a lot of friendships on the show have gone through. But you really see it all on the screen, like they're having fun playing off of each other well.
Yeah.
Garibaldi takes on a mission to go to the Drazi homeworld. For what I understood is a diplomacy mission. This is where I took my nap, Magellan. So when I woke up, he was going to a diplomacy mission.
So what had happened was there was a pilot who was on one of these shipping transports that's been attacked, who's a human pilot. And reports are that he survived the attack and made it to the Drazi homeworld and is like hiding out there.
Okay.
They want to talk to him and they want to have him testify about like what he saw, who attacked him, that kind of thing, just to get a better sense of what these shipping line attacks are.
Yep.
The issue is that the Drazi hired him to smuggle illegal goods of some kind.
Oh.
We don't know what exactly it is. It's like weapons maybe, or drugs or something. So they don't want the Alliance to talk to him because they don't want to get in trouble for doing this illegal stuff.
I see. This makes a lot more sense now. With the whole like having a contact on the ground and
yeah, so Garibaldi knows a guy on the Drazi homeworld who he knows can help him find this pilot dude.
Right.
And that's his buddy.
His pal. I like the shot of Garibaldi. We don't really see people in transit on this show that often. But we see him like on a crappy transport going to it, and there's like two Drazi on his left and right, like he's squished between them, and he's in coach clearly, and one of them just barfs, and he's like, "Oh, it's a living." Yeah. Garibaldi is brought onto the Drazi homeworld like it's like a new Skyrim hub city, where he's like, "Wow, there's all these merchants and like this big fancy hotel, and I have such a big view, and I have all this food service, and wow." He is a little apprehensive, and someone tries to sneak up behind him, and he pulls a gun on him, and the guy's like, "Tested your reflexes, huh?" And it's his old buddy Tafik. "Hey Tafik, what's going on?" They chat, they have a little bit of bro down. They talk about how like on the Drazi homeworld, I loved learning about the Drazi homeworld, like the geography of it, like how their streets are intentionally really thin to avoid military conflict, which I want to say was a thing in an ancient city. I can't remember where. But I know, like, the idea of just thinning out your roads to avoid, like, tanks and stuff has been done before.
Yeah.
But then Garibaldi is just like, they made bombs. That doesn't do anything anymore because we made bombs. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, but they tried. The guys, like you said, like, let's have a drink, let's have a good time. I'm trying to remember the order of operations here. The laser pointer thing where the guy sees him is after they pass out, right?
Yeah, so the plan is, like, I'm not fully clear on the exact details of the plan, but more or less the plan is, what's his friend's name again?
Tafik.
Tafik says, "Hey, buddy, so I've arranged for the guy to come find you. He's going to come later and shine a laser pointer in your window, and you'll meet him outside. And then I'm going to go and arrange your transport out of here and back to Babylon 5. In the meantime, let's get drunk." So they drinky. They take a nap, or Garibaldi takes a big nap.
Big nap.
Tafik says, "Okay, I'm going to go arrange your transport back. See you soon, buddy."
Yeah.
And he leaves to go do that. And when he leaves the room, he's attacked by a Drazi guy.
Yes.
Who's ostensibly working for the Drazi government to try to suppress them finding this witness.
Mm-hmm.
And then Garibaldi wakes up. He sees the light, beep, 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 in the window. He goes to do something about it. He sees Tafik in the hallway, has been fatally attacked. He fights the Drazi guy, he talks to his friend, and then he tries to get to the pilot. When he gets to him, he finds that he's dead, and he'd been guarded or had been killed by these mysterious hooded, robed figures.
Who Garibaldi later says it was like more painful to punch them than it was to punch a Drazi, so they're probably
less painful.
Less painful, excuse me, because Drazi are scaly.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't think they were Drazi. There's another faction on Babylon on the Drazi homeworld.
Mm-hmm.
This leads to him coming back to B5 and breaking down everything that happened. He brought back a piece of like a metal fastener button sort of thing that was on one of their outfits, it looks like. And when Londo comes late to the meeting, I love Londo coming late to meetings, by the way.
Uh-huh.
I just find him so charming when he's just like, hey, what's up? What did I miss? What's going on? Did we die yet? We blowing things up? And they're like, yep, he's back. And he's like, what's that cool button you got, Garibaldi? He's like, it's nothing. He's like, no, it is something. It's like an ancient, like royal Centauri, like noble clip. If someone and then Garibaldi is like coy is lying to him and is like, oh, I got it in the Zocalo for cheap. The guy said it was useless. I thought it was kind of cool. He's like, you got swindled, Garibaldi. No, what a bummer. I'm Londo. He leaves, and then I love this part because he leaves, and then 1 second later, they're in a different meeting room, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? Does Londo not know that his people are like maybe responsible for all of these attacks? Like, what's going on? And Jakar kind of comes in and is like, it's probably more complicated than that because we saw a weird guy. He tells them. I don't know why they didn't tell them this earlier. Like, immediately tell everybody.
Because, maybe Jakar and Londo were thinking that it was like internal Centauri politics, and it's not really an alliance issue.
Fair.
I think that was their assumption.
It's like, why bother mentioning it? I didn't think to mention this, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, there was a weird guy there. It seems like he had the run of the place. Not really sure what's going on with that, but that's probably what the deal is. I don't think we're too big-brained for understanding that this is the Drock, right, Magellan?
I can't tell to what extent we are supposed to know or not know. We know that the Drock are called the Drock, right?
Yeah, because when Delenn met them in that episode.
Met them, he's like, hey, we're the Drock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think we're big-brained at all because we know that the Centauri are working, that the Drock have influence over the Centauri. Like, we saw a Drock save
He might have looked
Londo's
slightly
life.
different from the one we saw in the other episode. But
He looked pretty similar, though.
And this is the one that's a little wonky, they talked about the Telepath War and the Drock conflict in Deconstruction of Falling Stars as, like, moments in the Interstellar Alliance's history.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I guess because, like, they might have, I don't think they, like, originally planned that episode, so it was kind of, but they now should have known that they made it. Like, this is, I think, filmed after that, if I understand this correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So they should know that we've heard that. It doesn't need to be, like, a big mystery of, like, who is this mysterious faction?
Yeah, so I can't tell how much of it is really supposed to be a mystery for us, or if it's just that it's a mystery for the characters. And it's a dramatic irony kind of thing.
I think it's much more likely. I mean, that's still exciting. It's just a different kind of, like, exciting, I guess.
Yeah, the thing that I have a question about is, like, why, if Delenn has met them, why hasn't this been an idea on the table yet?
Yeah.
That it's the Drock. Did she think that she killed them all? I can't remember how that ended up going.
I don't think she did killing. I think she was just, like, they're a problem.
I thought they fought, though.
Yeah, that's true. Babylon 5 Drock. If I can just read this wiki page right up to where they describe that and then stop. Bipedal humanoids, history, began, influence the former members of the Shadows, Minbari religious caste, Minbari civil war, border raids began to pick up, which helped him. That's it. No. Well, actually, yeah, their attacks are what led to the forming of the Interstellar Alliance. We know that. But that's, like, the last thing here. That is before this.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what we were supposed to think of where they went at the end of last season. Or last time we saw them. That was this season, I think.
Right.
But anyways, that's going to blow up very soon. We know it to happen. We know what's going to happen. So
I thought it was cool, Jakar's take on whether they should tell Londo or not.
Yeah.
Like how much he really genuinely wants to make sure that Londo doesn't get killed.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder why that's the case. I think it relates to his sort of philosophy that he's espousing to the Narn about being able to get along with other species. I think he probably sees, like, Londo's his friend, maybe. But I think he also sees Londo as like the best chance that the Narn have for a Centauri who's like sympathetic to them, or like understands that a bridge should be built. And so he has a stake in making sure that Londo survives. But he also seems to genuinely care about him, which was cool to see.
Right, when they're like, yeah, so Londo in a couple months is going to have to go back to Centauri Prime. And they're like, are you going to go with him? And he's like, I go with him everywhere he goes. It's like, oh, yay.
Where he goes, I go.
Yay. Very happy for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also we can talk about Jakar and the religious figure stuff next, because I think that's a good segue. But like, we're seeing Jakar realize his role in things. Honestly, I would say much better than like the Byron stuff, because Jakar literally had a vision like of his father and of a higher being that said like, you need to learn to bridge the gap. Like, you have to be the first person to want to shake hands, become peaceful. The key to that is saying sorry. Like, he had that, with the tree and with his like the vision and all that stuff. Yep. So like, in a way, he is having the story of a religious figure. It just happens to be happening in the future, and he didn't plan for it, and he's not dead yet.
Right.
So like,
right.
I imagine like if we got to see in Deconstruction of Falling Stars like what the future of the Narn was like, that he would most certainly be viewed as like a holy figure, the way that like Sheridan and company were way later.
Yeah.
So he comes back, and I think this plot's just really fascinating and extremely well done.
There is something really interesting about the writer of a holy text when the holy text is like released before he's done writing it.
Right.
So he can have active input on like how it's interpreted.
Yeah, I kept thinking the gag was going to be when they were like, it says here you're racist. He was going to be like, give me that book. And then he's going to like rip a page out of it.
Yeah, I thought he was going to do that too.
But he meets up with our boy Talon again, Sword Boy himself, Sword Boyfriend. What a lovable character. What a good, just sassy man.
I thought that it was a different actor, but I might just be wrong.
I saw a name I remembered in the credits, so I believe it's the same Talon guy.
Okay. All right.
Talon Babylon 5. No, not Tafik. Talon. Thank you. That's, Marshall Teague. So he's all sassy, and he's like, I did miss you, Jakar, now that you're back. And well, he says something like, he's like, oh, he's still using the sword. And he's like, I use the sword when I need to. He's like making sword jokes. Jakar goes into his room, and he's like, where's my things? Where's my book? I was writing a screenplay. It was awesome. Yeah. And this part's just hilarious and drawn out, where they're like, no, it's fine. He's like, what'd you guys do with my book? They're like, no, it's fine. He's like, what'd you guys do with my book? And they're like, I mean, this is confusing to me. They say, we thought that the Centauri just took you. Nobody told us that you were going to go to become Londo's bodyguard. So we figured you might be dead and never come back. So we took what writing we could find of you, and we sent it back to the Narn homeworld, and we made him 500 copies of it. And everyone has copies now.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, Citizen Jakar. You are now a religious icon.
Yeah.
But like, why didn't he tell them like, hey, I'm going to go be a bodyguard for like a month?
Well, I've gotten the sense that he's kind of disconnected from the Narn ever since he walked away from being their leader. I didn't know that there were going to be Narn who would care, Right. Like, what is it about him? I think
like,
Jakar was surprised by that too.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is just like, wow, I guess I'm famous.
Right.
So he is like this all ends up building up to a fantastic conversation between him and Talon. After everyone's like bowing to him and like getting his autograph, he's like, this is weird. Talon, what's going on? I don't like this. What is the gist of that conversation as you remember it?
So Jakar doesn't want, at first he's kind of into like, okay, I'm a religious icon. And then he holds himself up in his room and he doesn't want to talk to anybody. And Talon goes in. He's like, what's up, man? They want to hear something from you. Jakar says, I've got nothing to say to them. They're a bunch of I don't
Nasty
want to talk
boys.
to them.
Yeah.
Meh. And then Talon says, come on. And Jakar says, well, but what if it becomes about me instead of about like the book or about the ideas?
Yeah.
What if I become like the center of this instead of it being a change of thought that can like sweep across the whole race and make us better? And Talon is like, hey man, if that happens, I'll kill you. Deal? And Jakar's like, yeah, deal. And he calls back to the line that he said a few episodes ago, the last time he was here, of like, I carry my sword in my hand, you carry yours in your heart, where it can't be taken away from you. That's cool. And so Jakar, he goes to his door and he waves everybody and he's like, come in. All right, fine. We'll talk.
Let's have a rap session.
Yeah, and that leads to my favorite scene of the episode, and one of my favorite Jakar scenes ever, I think, where they're talking about the book, and one of the guys is like, listen, Jakar, I love your book, but you're saying all this stuff about how the Centauri are cool, but in on the first page it says the Centauri are a bunch of lame losers and you shouldn't like them or trust them, and they all suck.
What's the deal with that?
Yeah, what's up with that? Also, there's, I forgot that Londo's like, am I in the book? And Jakar's like, yeah, I describe you as like a big asshole. You were in my book.
Did you draw me? Like, yeah, I drew you with like a spike up your butt. He's like, no.
Yeah. And so this is such a cool moment because the guy who's reading the book of Jakar is like, look, Jakar, this book is a holy book, obviously, which means everything in it is true because it came down from like God or whatever. And Jakar is just sitting there like, oh, I wrote it. I remember when I wrote it, I was drunk and grumpy.
I was 18 and pissed off, and Londo just dumped me. And
now it's the basis of a whole religion. This is so stressful.
It's so that, though. It's so that. Like, he was a younger person. He was a more ignorant person when he wrote this. And it does recall, like, if someone were to somehow, like, pull up something you wrote when you were, like, a young teenager or something and be like your poetry books, Magellan. And they were just like, yeah, dude.
Yeah,
this
or
is
like my diaries or whatever.
Yeah, or the diaries. And you're just like, oh, ooh, goo, I was racist. Not that you were racist, but like, ooh, no, I said some bad things I don't feel anymore.
Yeah. And like, why are people worshiping these things? Oh boy.
Yeah.
So Jakar's response, he's like, when was that written though? The guy says, well, like 2 years ago. Jakar says, yeah, so I've changed my mind. And the guy isn't convinced. And so the coolest Jakar exchange ever happens. It ends in kind of a stupid, like, I didn't need the comical sound effect at the end.
Yeah.
But the lead up is so tense and interesting, where Jakar is like, oh, where is that in there? Show it to me. And then he finds it, and then he says, put your face in the book.
What? You said you wanted to be closer to the text. Put your face in the book.
Yeah. And the guy's like, what?
Okay.
And Jakar's like, well, if the book says that we can trust all Narn and we can't trust the Centauri, then you can put your face in the book. I'm not going to do anything to you.
Why would I do anything?
That was
up-dogged.
That was
the guy
so
gets
cool.
up-dogged.
Yeah, he does.
He's like, no, it's fine. What do you mean it's fine? No, it's fine.
He does the thing where he looks at your fingers in a ring below your waist and you get to punch him in the arm.
Exactly. And then he closes the book on the guy's face. It's fantastic. Because the way that this scene like captures how somebody can reject like godhood and also, or not godhood, but like, you know, religious figure worship and all of that, while also being just a regular ass dude. It's like, no, just I'm here. Like, not saying like if Jesus was still alive, what would he act like? But sometimes, yeah, someone would be like, but Jesus, didn't you say to kill all the gays? And it's like, dude, I didn't. I wrote it weird. Yeah. I had a guy write it for me. He mistranslated it. Like, it's been literally 2,000 years. Like, can you just? I didn't say that. It's like, okay. Yeah, it's fantastic. I love this moment. Jakar even, like, he's got great moments with Londo and then just great moments with the Narn. Like, the Narn are probably one of my favorite races on the show, you know, because they're so interesting the way that they like their relationship to their own culture. and spirituality.
I agree. Yeah.
And then to close out, we have another brief plot that kind of doesn't happen until these last moments because Franklin is sitting down for dinner at some point and he receives an urgent message. He's like, I was about to eat dinner. And they're like, you got a message. And then he talks to Sheridan and says, hey, so do you know a guy named Benjamin Kyle? And our recently watched the beginning, not recently, many months ago, but we watched the beginning recently enough to remember that name. Are like,
yeah, that was cool.
Seriously,
that was a nice little flourish of like even he still exists.
He's absolutely in the show. Like, what are we gonna get? Laurel Takashima's coming next. She has to.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, yeah. So now he works in Earthdome and does like amazing research there, and he's retiring in a year. At the end of this year, and they asked me to take over, and I'm gonna do it. And then I love Sheridan's response here because he's like, "Now I don't want you to think I'm happy. Normally I would say this is good news. I don't think this is good news, but you're allowed to do it." And then he's like, "Between you and me, on a strictly personal level, aka no homo, I value your friendship.
Right.
I value your commitment to community service." Thanks, Sheridan. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're losing.
What did you think of this move for Franklin?
I, as somebody who is thinking a lot in my own life about like, when do you decide in a good gig to leave? Like, what makes you decide to leave? What is it about the other job? Because what he's saying is like, I'm not leaving my position. I'm just leaving my post. Like, I'm doing this job somewhere else. So, like, physically I won't be around anymore, but like I'm still doing what you guys want me to do, just not here. I get that, and I think it's a neat way to bring back Kyle in like a respectful way that like brings back that we don't even need to see that actor, but just to be like it's all coming full circle. We're going back to where we started. Is really nice. And I am sad that Franklin's going to be gone, but I don't necessarily think he's going to be gone from the season because he says the end of the year. And Babylon 5 seasons don't usually go beyond a single year within the show.
Right. It seems like this is sort of the setup for his ride off into the sunset.
Right. Like when the show ends, this is where he's going.
But then the question is like, why does this happen now, I guess?
Right. Maybe it's just to like let us know that things are starting to wrap up because we're a little past the halfway point.
Yeah. And I think the reason that this is happening now in part is because right at the end of the scene, what happens is Franklin says, I got to tell Garibaldi I put in a call into his room. And then we see that he's like totally zonked out and drunk.
This is where we pan over to the Bugs Bunny statue on his desk.
Yeah. So I think that part of the reason that this is happening now is we're going to get some Franklin Garibaldi friendship development in the episodes to come.
Yeah, they have to.
I hope so.
This is a chance for Franklin to have his last, like, hey, I want to reconcile these relationships with people moments.
Yeah.
So that's actually really exciting. Again, not like ashamed of myself, but just laughing at myself for really missing the Garibaldi stuff. But the significance of, like, that whole final scene of just, like, Garibaldi is still here, and he's still in his room, and he's still drinking, except now he's, like, not even keeping it together. He's just asleep, passed out, wasted. We see an empty whiskey bottle, and then we see the great thing about the Bugs Bunny statue is it's like a sad Bugs Bunny.
Yeah,
he's like on a couch just frowning. And that's where we end the episode. So we have some more pieces in place for our next story arc. Very exciting stuff. Magellan, I'm curious though. Did you have any stray notes about this episode, by the way?
No, I think we hit everything.
The only one I had was from the scenes. Not enough can be said about the performance of the guy who plays Tafik. I think he does a good job of feeling like he really, like, that's a tough role to play. It's like you've known this guy his whole, like, for years, and you haven't seen him in like a couple, like, many years, but you know him, so you have to act like you know him. And like I said, they're talking about all the Drazi stuff, and then when they cheers, they say, "Good fortune, good health, good God." And then
I like that a lot.
Garibaldi's like, "Good God, scold," which I guess is like a cheers in whatever language, I guess. And then they just cap it with the good, like, might as well be a fourth wall break of, "So what happened to your hair?" And then Garibaldi's like, 5 years of intense stress.
Yeah.
I liked that also the other moment where they're talking about Garibaldi, and I think Sheridan is like, Garibaldi's been on the ship for 5 years. Literally, no one has been on the ship longer than Garibaldi has. You think that would do something to someone?
Yeah, and it's not even that long.
Yeah, it's just, 5 years. 5 years in like an incredibly stressful environment will age the fuck out of you.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like for careerist people,
yeah.
5 years is not like that startling.
You're just cracking over, like you now understand all the ropes, and you're one of the experienced ones, but you're not like an old guard.
So it says a lot about how quickly people like cycle out of and leave Babylon 5.
Exactamundo. It's just, this is a high turnover environment.
Yeah. What about Corwin, huh?
Yeah, how long's Corwin been around? I mean, he's only like 4 years old, so
right,
it's not like he could be that. He couldn't be there that long. Sheridan in one of these scenes also has a really gross dress shirt that I hated. Yeah, I was in the scene where he's talking to Franklin. He's in like a pukey green dress shirt, and I'm like,
oh no, I liked his brown one.
Oh yes,
his like kind of paisley brown one.
Mm-hmm.
I like that he's wearing different shirts now.
It's better than
fun.
Just like the uniform 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's all I got. I hit all the good notes.
Okay, you want to know what we're watching next week?
I really do.
Next week, we're watching 2 more episodes of Season 5 of Babylon 5. We are nearing the end, my friend. First, we are watching Season 5, Episode 13, The Core is Mother, the Core is Father. While tracking an unstable telepath trainee on Babylon 5, Bester instructs 2 interns on the motives of the Psi Corps.
Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that we're getting like a one-off telepath Bester episode after we just had a bunch of Bester, but that sounds cool.
I'll take it.
And then we have Season 5, Episode 14, Meditations on the Abyss. Veer learns he is the new Centauri ambassador to Babylon 5.
I thought you were going to say Centauri Emperor.
Not yet.
Ambassador? Ooh.
Yeah, we haven't seen Veer in a minute.
I really, really miss Veer.
I miss my man.
I miss Stephen First very deeply. That's exciting. Yeah. I wonder how Veer's going to be like, Londo, you got the Drock on the planet again, you fool! He like hits him. Cool. Well, Magellan, I think we got to take it over to the plug zone, the zone of plugs.
Let's do it.
If you don't mind. If you, dear listener, would like to send us questions, comments, concerns electronically, please do so by sending those to chatspod@gmail.com. That's chatzpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us at Chatspod on Twitter, where I'm posting jokes. I'm posting episodes. If you want to comment, you want to send us stuff there, you can do that. Be sure to rate us on your podcast platform of choice. We're really trying to get the word out there about chats as we move into whatever we end up doing after B5. We got to keep the audience around and keep the hand strong as we progress into the unknown abyss. Just the hand,
yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And if you'd like to support us financially, in addition to with your audio listens and downloads, please consider checking out patreon.com/chatspod. Over there, you can set up a donation to us every month at $1 or $3 or $5. We have different reward tiers. At $5, you get all of our content, where every other week we do a pilot, where we watch a pilot of a TV show and talk about if that's going to be a chatsable show. That's called Pilot Chats. On the off weeks, we do Chats Nights. That is where we talk about who knows what. We just put out an episode where we talked about the Ren Fair. We have a lot of fun stuff planned there. And then at just $1 a month, every month, you get commentary chats where we watch a movie and record our commentary of it. For October, we watched the delightfully weird, delightfully special Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, which is very cool. Magellan, what is your chatsome for this week?
My chatsome for this week is something that you suggested to me today, actually. How new is this? This thing that I'm going to
I think it's like really new, because the way I found it was I was just on the App Store like refreshing my updates, and then it was like, hey, it's new on the App Store. It was on the front page of the App Store.
Okay. So today I downloaded the iPhone port, the iOS port of RuneScape Classic, which is has been out for a little bit, for a couple of years on browsers, but this is the first time that it's going mobile. For those who don't know, RuneScape was like a very basic like Java MMO from the aughts. The version of it that is emulated by RuneScape Classic that Alan and I played in middle school is from was started in 2007, and there's just a lot of nostalgia in this game for me. And if you've played RuneScape before, it's awesome, because RuneScape, the gameplay is so stunningly basic and so repetitive that like the prospect of doing it in front of a computer screen sounds heartbreaking. But the idea of like you can just flick into the app, and like if you want to veg out for 30 minutes lying down, you can mine, listen to a podcast, do it on the toilet, whatever, do it on, I guess you can't do it on the train because you won't have Wi-Fi, but you can kind of fill like idle moments with these totally idle tasks. That's really what the game is made of. And you can walk around this world and make stuff and do stuff. And I don't know, I like it. It's itching that, or it's scratching that nostalgia itch for me.
Yeah, it's agreed exactly. Like RuneScape, when you're in middle school, is like, I have too much free time. I will make everything, build everything, become like the ultimate role-playing character. Because it's like from a time of MMOs before the idea of doing quests to like level up and progress was normal, like pre-World of Warcraft even, you know? So it was just like, you kind of just do stuff and make your own fun. Like that's what's appealing about it. But there's just something, like you said, about it being on mobile where you're like, oh, suddenly this feels like a really satisfying free-to-play idle game. Like the wonkiness of like the fact that it's still like click to move makes perfect sense when you're on a tab interface. It almost feels like The Sims. Like it's like if they made The Sims into an MMO where you're just like, I make a character and they kind of exist, and if I want them to mine, I like click on the rocks and then they do mining until they're done mining, and if I want them to build something, I walk them over to the smithy, and like it's very tactile in that way. You're always like touching and finds it being on mobile kind of makes it feel like you're like looking into like a little picture box, and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like fiddle around the little fantasy world and like do my little tasks for the day.
Yeah, something about it is like mobile is actually the perfect platform.
100%. Yeah. So I'm gonna continue to try that out as well. Very cool.
What about you? What's your Chatzylon?
God, speaking of falling down rabbit holes, I guess. I don't know what. Actually, I know what started this. A couple months ago, Waypoint, the Vice Games podcast, they had a host talk about this YouTube channel. It's the YouTube channel for the magazine Bon Appetit. It's like a food magazine, and the YouTube channel used to be focused a lot on like just recipes and like weird stuff, like different ways to cook food and prepare food. And recently they kind of discovered the like secret sauce of like successful YouTube channels is personalities. And they have these two series on there. One is called It's Alive with Brad, which is when they have this guy Brad, who's like a very charming outdoorsy guy, just work with food either outdoors or like with food that is based in like live cultures, so like sourdough and I forget what else he does. I don't watch a lot of It's Alive because I think while Brad is very charming, he works best in contrast to Claire, who is the host of their show Gourmet Makes. And Gourmet Makes is like, I stayed up until 3 in the morning watching Gourmet Makes, folks. It is these like really long, fascinating dives into like how you make popular junk food, like how an actual gourmet chef would make, you know, Skittles or Reese's Pieces or Pringles or Oreos. Like how do you like, what is the process of making something like that? It's not just that the videos are fascinating, but like I said, Claire Saffitz is like so funny and interesting, and you're just like it's a testament to like how successful you can be with just a stationary camera, like a nice bench space and a single host just talking and like working through stuff. 'Cause like sometimes she fails a lot. And it's kind of funny and entertaining, and you're just like in the space. They're very relaxing, very soothing in the same way like a lot of like Food Network-y shows are. But I definitely recommend the Gourmet Makes show on the Bon Appetit YouTube channel if you want to learn something and also be extremely chill.
Nice. That
Yeah.
sounds great.
In that, dear listener, dear friend of mine. Well, actually, first of all, let's say thank you. Hey, everyone. Thanks to Magellan for being my co-pilot on this podcast.
Wow. Thank you for being my co-pilot.
Thank you to the listener for listening to this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.